I literally said, "You're kidding?" He said, "No," and in that second, I realized they weren't negotiating. I pushed back, obviously, told them it was dumb, unnecessary, a waste of time. They didn't move an inch. I tried silence, sarcasm, even guilt. Nothing. They just kept repeating some version of the same line. "We love you too much to let you coast into nothing." At the time, I thought it was dramatic. Now, I know it was the first honest intervention I'd ever had. 3 weeks later, I was stepping off a tiny prop plane onto a dusty runway in Utah, with a duffel bag, brand new hiking boots, and 6 other teenagers who looked just as pissed or panicked as I felt. The first day felt like a prank. No phones, no Wi-Fi, no hot showers, no beds, no junk food, just canvas packs, tents, the smell of sagebrush, and instructors who seemed to genuinely enjoy discomfort. We hiked 8 miles that first day. 8 miles. I thought my lungs were going to explode. By noon, I had blisters forming on both heels. That night, the air dropped into the 40s, and I laid in that sleeping bag thinking I'm suing my parents when I get home. Sounds like a joke, but I meant it in the moment. The second day was worse. They made us cook our own breakfast over this tiny stove. My eggs were half raw, half burned. We filtered water from a freezing creek. We learned how to tie knots I couldn't pronounce. Every little thing felt like it was designed to punish me. There was this guy next to me, Ryan, from San Diego. That night, after dinner, he sat on this flat rock and cried. Not loud, not dramatic, just silent tears down his face. I remember looking at him thinking, "Come on, man, get it together." But inside, I was right there with him. I wanted to break down too. I just refused to let anyone see it. By day 3, something in me just snapped. Not in some dramatic movie way. More like, my resistance got tired before my body did. I stopped arguing, stopped rolling my eyes, stopped pretending I was above it all. At some point, you just run out of energy to fight reality.
We woke up before sunrise. The sky was this faded blue-gray, and you could see your breath in the air. The instructors had us pack up camp in silence. Nobody complained out loud, but you could feel the misery. That morning, we hiked through this narrow canyon with sandstone walls towering above us. The sun hadn't reached the ground yet, so everything was cold and colorless. My shoulders ached from the pack. My legs were tight. My lips were cracked. But somewhere in that silence, my brain went quiet too. Not peaceful, just quiet. Around midday, one of the instructors, a guy named Mark Beard, probably mid-40s, eyes like he'd seen everything, walked beside me for a while. He didn't lecture me, didn't ask questions. He just said, "You know, discomfort's not the enemy. Numbness is." I didn't respond, didn't even really process it at the time, but those words stuck to me like dust on my boots. That night, they had us make a fire without matches, flint and steel only. It took forever. My hands were stiff. My patience was gone. But when that first spark caught and the kindling finally lit, something small in me flickered too. Not pride, exactly, but a feeling I hadn't known in a long time. I actually did something hard, and it worked. Over the next couple of weeks, the misery didn't disappear, but it changed shape. My body adapted. My mind stopped counting the days. I learned how to cook things that were actually edible. I could pitch a tent in the dark. I could read a compass. I could carry 40 pounds on my back without cursing the ground. But the real shift didn't hit me until week 3. We were on a solo hike, day 2 miles, up and back on our own. No instructors walking beside us, just a map, a canteen, and a checkpoint. About halfway through, I stopped on this ridge. Below me was a dry riverbed, and beyond that, this endless stretch of red and gold rock that looked almost unreal. The wind was cutting across the canyon, and for the first time in my life, I realized how small I was. Not in a depressing way, in a clarifying way. Nobody cared who my dad was out there. Nobody cared what clothes I wore, or what school I went to, or how many followers I had or didn't have. The only thing that mattered in that moment was weather. I could put one foot in front of the other and get back before dark.
And that weirdly felt freeing. That night, back at camp, we sat around the fire. Everyone was tired, but calmer than usual. Ryan, the kid who cried on day 2, was laughing about something dumb. Another guy, Eli, was showing someone how to fix a busted buckle on their pack. I wasn't talking much, but I was listening differently. Mark, the instructor, was poking the fire with a stick. After a while, he looked up at us and said, "Most of you came here thinking this place would change you, and it probably will, but not because the wilderness is magic. It's because, for the first time in your life, the noise is gone, and when the noise is gone, you start hearing your own voice for the first time." I didn't show it on my face, but that line hit harder than he probably intended. I'd spent my whole life surrounded by noise, comfort, distraction, expectation, boredom disguised as contentment. And for once, I couldn't hide in it. Weeks 4 and 5 were different. We started working as a group, not just coexisting, but actually cooperating. I helped cook without being asked. I carried extra weight when someone was hurting. I even started asking questions, real ones, about why we were doing certain things and how they knew so much. One afternoon, while we were filtering water, I asked Mark how he got into this work. He told me he used to be in the military, then search and rescue, then spent a long, painful stretch trying to figure out why he was angry all the time. He said the wilderness didn't fix him, but it gave him fewer places to hide from himself. That night, I laid in my sleeping bag staring at the nylon ceiling, and for the first time in a long time, I thought about my life without rolling my eyes at it. I thought about my parents, not with blame, but with something closer to understanding. They weren't trying to punish me, they were trying to wake me up. I thought about school, not as a trap, but as something I'd never actually given a fair shot. I thought about the kind of person I might become if I stopped defaulting to "I don't care." By week 6, something had shifted so much that I almost didn't recognize the kid who stepped off that plane. We hiked our final trail as a group, 12 miles, up to this lookout point that felt like the edge of the world. The sky was vast, the horizon looked endless, and when we got to the top, nobody complained, nobody collapsed. We just stood there. Some of us cried, some of us were silent. I remember just breathing and realizing that the air didn't feel thin anymore. On the last night, they had us write letters to ourselves, one to open in a month, one in a year. I remember sitting by the fire, pen in hand, and not knowing where to start. Then the words came like water breaking a dam. I didn't write about goals or careers or big dreams. I wrote about not sleeping through my own life. I wrote about paying attention. I wrote about effort, and how maybe it wasn't the enemy I thought it was. When my parents picked me up at the airport, I wasn't suddenly a different person. I was still me, but quieter, more awake, a little sunburned, a little leaner, a little less afraid of the parts of myself I used to ignore. My dad hugged me without joking. My mom squeezed my face like she did when I was little. On the ride home, Nobody filled the silence with small talk, and for once, the quiet didn't feel heavy. The weeks that followed weren't some miracle transformation. I didn't become valedictorian. I didn't start meditating at sunrise or running marathons, but I did something I'd never really done before. I showed up to school, to conversations, to myself. I started lifting weights in the garage, not because someone told me to, but because I liked feeling my body do hard things. I helped my dad with projects without being asked. I cooked dinner with my mom a few times a week. My grades went from autopilot to intentional, not perfect, but owned. And then maybe the most unexpected part, I went back. Not as a student, as staff. A year later, I signed up to be a junior mentor for the same wilderness program. This time, I wasn't the angry kid with blisters and attitude. I was the guy helping some other version of me figure out how to tie their boots, how to breathe on the uphill, how to not freak out when the silence got loud. The first time a kid cried on day 2, I didn't judge him. I sat down on the rock next to him, let the quiet do most of the work, and when he was ready, I told him the truth. You're not here because you're weak. You're here because someone still believes you're not done yet. Every time I said it, I heard it again for myself. Some of those kids hated me the first week, rolled their eyes, shrugged off advice, laughed at the structure. I didn't blame them. I'd worn those same defenses like armor. But week by week, something always cracked. Not because the wilderness is magical, but because it's honest in a way the world rarely is. And somewhere in that honesty, people remember who they could be. Now, I don't tell this story like I'm a hero. I'm not. I'm just someone who got shaken awake before it was too late. Someone who got sent into the dirt and the cold and the quiet long enough to hear his own voice under all the noise. Someone who stopped floating and started choosing. I still don't have everything figured out. I don't think anyone really does. But I know this much. Discomfort isn't the enemy. Drifting is. And if I can help someone else interrupt that drift even for a moment, even with a small spark in the dark, then maybe that's what all of this was for.